Hi, my name is Jordan. I am a special education teacher from the UK. I share my passion for everything communication, sensory regulation, and fun lesson ideas for my classroom of disabled pupils aged 4 to 11. Each week, I am joined by experts in the field, answering your questions and sharing our knowledge and experience working alongside our beautiful young people. Let's get started. Hello everybody and welcome to the Sensory Classroom podcast. Today I am joined by parents Emily and Stuart from Journey to Autism, and I particularly wanted this couple on because their little one is starting school in September, and also Emily comes from a background of mainstream teacher and Senko, and I just think that dynamic is really interesting from supporting at school to supporting as a parent because it is a very different role, and I thought you'd be interested in that. Welcome Emily and Stuart.
Hey,
Hi.
nice to be on.
Of course. When I heard about your different roles that you play within the SEN space, I was really intrigued as to how that plays out with your journey as a parent and supporting your child. So what does your family dynamic look like, I suppose? Let's start there.
So it's just us and Noah. So Noah literally turned 4 last month. And like you say, he is starting school in September, which is very scary, but exciting as well, actually.
So he's diagnosed autistic, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what, does he only recently just got his diagnosis, or how did that come about?
So he was diagnosed the week he turned 3. So basically a year ago, kind of to this day, probably around now, we started the journey to diagnosis. We always felt that something was a bit different, and we sort of saw that from probably day dot, didn't we? I remember we said, like, why is everything so tricky? When we were like,
Certainly
everything was
really
just challenging. And then it was around 18 months that we kind of got a letter in with the GP, and then that started the diagnosis journey. And then, when he turned 3, he was diagnosed with autism and global development delay as well.
What kind of things were you seeing pre 18 months?
Sleep.
Yeah.
Okay, so lack of sleep.
Still seeing lack of sleep. Even this morning.
Yeah, that sleep's always been a thing. And just, I think also, like, we didn't necessarily know it then as much, but kind of sensory differences. He was always on the go, even as like a really, really newborn. He was so alert.
Would never like sit still, would always be wriggling,
Yeah.
go in his pram.
Yeah, never.
It's just kind of, not irritable, but very kind of...
Yeah, because he was always quite a happy baby, actually.
Happy.
And he's still pretty happy, apart from when he's dysregulated now. But yeah, he was just, I'd say,
always
kind
wanting
of always needing something,
Mm.
always very alert, like everything that kind of might just come with time never did.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, this is tricky. And like, we knew obviously any parenting is going to be challenging, but it just felt that bit trickier. And yeah, so I think it was that kind of social interaction was always slightly different. I wouldn't say he's ever kind of been, you hear that phrase, don't you, in his own world. And I wouldn't say he is really in his own world. He wants to kind of interact with us and wants to show us things he's interested in.
But on his terms. Always on his terms.
And like based on his interests. Animals are his thing. So everything we do.
Difficult.
ARFID. So he's not diagnosed with ARFID. It's basically, they've put probable ARFID because there isn't a team near us that diagnose.
Yeah, that's quite common.
Due to his age. Yeah. I've seen you've had a show on here before, haven't you, about ARFID?
Yeah.
And it's a whole, that's probably
the biggest,
trickiest thing.
And the most stressful, isn't it, as a parent, for your child not to be eating,
Exactly. And I think like with other things, you can kind of, I don't know, seek support and put things in place. And like, we've always been quite, and probably from my teacher background, like quite on board with like putting in different speech and language things, different sensory things like messy play. But with ARFID, it's kind of a whole new ball game, because actually what you would do for a picky eater really doesn't work for a child with ARFID.
And it's constant worry, isn't it? Constant, every single day.
That's
and when we get up,
find that the hardest.
So when we go to sleep, has he eaten enough? Have we done enough? Has he been exposed to enough things? How many of his certain foods that he likes has he eaten?
And like, we're down to 2 at the minute. But even like going kind of early signs, like even when we started the weaning journey, he never kind of accepted foods like a typical child, if you like. And it's all very kind of sensory based, but then he's got a lot of allergies as well. So potentially
so hard, isn't it?
Not trauma, but kind of where he has experienced a reaction, and then
he'll relate that food to that ill feeling, won't he?
Yeah,
So
he definitely does. He's got a really, really good memory.
there's a few little challenges that we've got.
Yeah,
Yeah.
things going on.
As first-time parents, though, were you doubting yourself? Like, is he, autistic, or are we just seeing things? Is it just us? Because you have no siblings to compare to.
Whenever we doubted ourselves, we just thought, my God, we just don't get a break. Like,
Yeah, is this normal? Is this how parenting is?
I remember Stuart saying to me really early on, he's like, surely this isn't what everyone goes through.
Like,
And
there was no sleep, and you can't just give him a biscuit and he'll sit in front of the telly. You couldn't do that.
No.
There was always seemed to be some issue, obstacle that we had to overcome for
I
him
think
to be
like
calm.
I definitely kind of up until the age of 1, I remember saying to my mum, for example, and to Stuart and my dad, like, oh, you don't think he's autistic, do you? And I would just kind of say it, but didn't actually necessarily think that was the case until he probably was around 1. And then I think I was certain.
In denial.
Yeah, sure.
Were you? Can we talk about that? Are you okay to talk about that, Stuart?
Yeah.
Because I think that's really common for one parent and the other, especially with your same background, Emily. I can imagine that you were kind of prepared for it. You knew what autism meant in a family.
I'd say exactly that.
I think also like knowledge is power, isn't it? And like actually the unknown is what's scary. So a lot of autism, to me, I don't see it in any way a negative thing. It's just a different thing. Whereas I think when you don't have so much kind of understanding or kind of background in it, it is really scary. And like there definitely has been times where I've felt scary
But you'd heard about it, you'd seen children with it, whereas I kind of had heard it fleetingly, and it was like this big kind of all-encompassing, all scary kind of, I don't want that.
Absolutely. And there's lots of misconceptions, isn't there? I mean, you said one perfectly, that he isn't lost in his world. Actually, he seeks out interaction. And I'm guessing those thoughts of those misconceptions with autism are playing on your mind. Well, he can't because he seeks out cuddles and I don't know, all of those kind of things.
To be honest, like, I wouldn't exactly say I'm 100% like
embracing,
comfortable. Do you know what I mean?
I think that's really honest. I do think that's really honest.
And I think as a parent as well, like, although we're fairly, I would say, quite open about how we feel about things. And I think actually that's kind of beneficial to other people. But like when people say, oh, would you change it? And actually, I wouldn't ever change Noah, but I would 100% change a lot of the things that he finds really challenging every day. If I could take away his fear of food, I would. Like, why wouldn't I? It is so
and it's hard for us, but one thing that you say constantly is,
I know what you're going to say.
Think about him. Well, how is he feeling? And how is he looking at it? And that is something that kind of really resonates with me. And I think, God, I'm having a hard time. He's the one. He's only 4. He's trying to communicate and do all these things, but he can't. So it's like, that really does try and put it into perspective.
I just think like when he's dysregulated or he's pretty much non-speaking, he'll say a few words, but basically animal words, animal names. Pretty much
he loves animals. We're surrounded by animals.
Like he'll say wildebeest, but he wouldn't say cookie.
I love autism for that. I love that.
Noah's first word was bonjour from Peppa Pig, and then second word was dinosaur.
Wow, it's just isn't it incredible? I just think they're just amazing, aren't they?
Like I do love how you totally see everything through a different lens, like being a parent of an autistic child, but that doesn't take away from the fact that it is really, really tough. And I think
and quite a lot of it's kind of in silence.
Yeah.
Like he appears like a normal kid.
To some extent.
And then it's like
people don't see like behind closed doors.
He'll go into it, he'll do this, he'll do that.
Is that what you're hearing, especially in the early days? Were you hearing
less so now, but I think that's not people saying it in a bad sense. It's just, for me, you mentioned autism, now I know a reasonable amount, but before it's like you want to say something, and you want to kind of normalize it, so it's that sort of phrase is like, well, we're trying to connect, not that we take offense, but it's like that completely is not true. It's like so far,
like with everything, like with the speaking, for example, everyone will be like, oh, and the sleep, like, oh, when he gets to 2, I'm sure he'll sleep then. When he gets to 2.5, I'm sure he'll start talking.
It was 3 months, wasn't it? 3 months. Get to 3 months. Get to 6 months. Then it was 18 months, and now we're still 4 years in, and he's still.
And that's not helpful, is it? So what would have been helpful to hear in those early days from those around you?
I think it's people, and again, like you said, it's not people trying to do it in a negative way. Like I
don't think it comes from a negative
No,
place
it
at
doesn't.
all.
But I think what actually is probably most helpful is people just listening and almost affirming, that must be really tough. Like, is there anything I can do to help? And not always trying to say, oh, it's okay, or he'll do it in a minute, because that just diminishes like your experience.
I think actually saying it's
tough.
It's tough.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, like, I kind of appreciate what you're going through.
And like also people say, I can't imagine, like, tell me about that. Like wanting, and to be fair, like our families, our friends are fab because they do want to learn more. Everyone's very like neuroaffirming.
That's why you started your own.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I started Journey to Autism, actually, because we don't have diagnosed autism in our families or neurodiversity that we know of. And in our friendship groups, there aren't children who have diagnosis. So it was really lonely as a parent. And unless you're living it, like that's why I guess we're like so close and each other's rock, because unless you're living it, you cannot imagine.
You have to be strong. I can't imagine. I just don't think I would cope on my own. Like, yes, we argue and we bicker, but at the sort of forefront is the strength, because you wouldn't be able to do it if there wasn't both of us. So
for sure.
Big respect to
single parents,
like
amazing.
Wow.
So that was kind of the reason for Journey to Autism, really, was to connect with other people in similar situations. And also I felt like I learned more from people who have been through it and people in those similar situations than any professional, unfortunately.
And it felt really tough. It was kind of not what can we do to help from the professionals.
Yeah,
it was almost like breaking down barriers and knocking down doors, but not just one. You had to knock down about 4 to try and even get any support. And then when you get something, it's not really that helpful.
No,
it's a fight, isn't it? And I think, unfortunately, I wish it was different. I wish I could tell you different. Unfortunately, that fight is quite repetitive throughout their life.
For sure.
It seems to, through lack of funding, lack of support, lack of local.
And it's not against anybody who's in the profession trying to help.
No, it's not individuals. It's like a blanket umbrella systemic issue, isn't it?
And that's what we found. And even like, again, I guess because we are quite open, like we've had those conversations with different professionals we've come into contact with, and they definitely feel the same frustrations as us. They're like, we wish we could do more, like, or, oh, we used to offer this support, but unfortunately there's no commissioning for it anymore. And it's just like, this is mad. And everything's about early intervention. And like all my professional training is about early intervention and the importance of that. And then even like from a family who have kind of been fighting from 18 months of age and with knowledge behind us to support kind of us to get that support, it's still really tricky.
And how do families do it without that background of
sense? Literally, Em comes out with these massive big words and I'm like, I just don't have a clue.
If you didn't know the protocol, if you didn't know what those acronyms meant, if you didn't know what offers were out there, how would families navigate it?
And you sort of close the door, and because especially with Noah, this is kind of his safe space, you kind of almost want to block everything out, and it is a struggle to go out the door. It is worth reiterating that there are other people going through kind of,
they're just unseen,
and it is good to talk. Like, social media is great
for that, 100%.
For that as well. And it's like, don't get stuck, because I was depressed, wasn't I? I probably still am. Like, as I said, I'm still coming to terms with everything. It's tough. It really is tough. Like, just go away.
Because you can't fix it. You can't control it. It just is. And I think that will stem into some mental health, because it's not like, oh, just go and exercise or just go and drink this thing and actually it works. It's like, no, this is it. And actually you can't control what amount of support you get. You can't control how hard the fight is. You can't control what school he goes to. It's so little control, and yet you care so much about him that you just want to do everything you can. And that, of course, brings you into a place of feeling out of control.
And I think that's really hard, because like kind of in our jobs, in the rest of our life, I would say we kind of have stuff together. Like, we are quite in control people.
Yeah.
And that's definitely my coping mechanism, is to feel in control, to try and learn as much as possible. And that's how I cope with it, and to talk and to kind of share. But you're so right, because actually you can do everything that someone tells you is the right thing to do with Noah, and then Noah might have his own agenda and it will not work. And it's kind of, I think, like the biggest thing for me is it's like that acceptance. And actually, and I think like you
being
say,
like focused by him,
being led by him. And
sometimes we've gone out the door, he won't put his shoes on, so we've got him in the car, he won't go in his car seat, and we've sat there, no joke, for like an hour. He won't go in his car seat, doesn't want to go inside, and you just
have to be
led by him, and you're kind of half in tears, crying, laughing, like sad. It's like, but that's you sort of being led by him, and you just have to.
And I think you kind of have your expectation of what parenting is like. This is, I would say, has been a big thing for us, is like we had that expectation of what parenting would be like. And actually, I mean, naively, we hadn't even thought about parenting a neurodiverse child, because neurodivergent child, because actually there was nothing in our family to suggest that that would be the case. And then actually what you think parenting is going to be like, and how you think you're going to be as a parent, couldn't be further from what actually life is like.
And timescales, like if you've got to get somewhere for 11, then more often than not, we will be late, and it's just.
And it's accepting that, isn't it? I think when people talk about acceptance, it's not just accepting the child. You adore the child. That's almost comes naturally enough as a parent. It's accepting from the family members, maybe not, but accepting from the parents, usually that comes hand in hand with just being the parent. But it's accepting, the looks, being late, the need for support, the need to fight, the adaptations to the home, the adaptations on the relationship, your future plans, all of those things. It's accepting that, I think, is a hell of a lot harder than accepting the child. And I think people forget, when we're talking about autism acceptance, it's not just autism exists or these people exist. It's accepting, I don't know, I might have to be a little bit late in the queue, or I might have to not look when somebody's dysregulated in the street. I might have to lower the lights in my shop, even though it might upset some other customers. It's acceptance in all aspects. As we've just finished Acceptance Month, I think it's quite important to talk about that. Maybe what is acceptance and all the facets that encompasses.
I think it's just being open-minded. I think certainly the older generation are very set in their ways, and I came to kind of parenting with like, well, this is the child's going to sort of fit into our lives after a certain amount of time, and then we'll sort of do that. Whereas there is literally
and then Noah came along,
and like that just completely is blown out the window. There is nothing normal day to day, like stereotypical parenting that we do really.
No. And actually, it's about, again, accepting that, because we could and I think that's a journey we've been on, isn't it? Like, it's actually picking your battles. Like, our whole life is
eating.
Battles.
Okay, one example is eating in the bed. I hate that. Like, but
no, he's eating. You couldn't,
safe. I have to put up with the crumbs and wash it out every day, and
Do you find there's a hierarchy in your head of, yes, of course we don't want him in the bed, but food is more important? It's like a kind of a category of, okay, of course we want him to wear his shoes, but actually we need to get to this appointment, we need to get to school, so the shoes come last.
Probably 5 months? No, he didn't wear shoes. He could not tolerate shoes. No. And it coincided, we kind of realised after time, with like a flare-up of eczema on his feet. But because he has so many sensory differences, that slight change of eczema, which wasn't much at all, but actually he just couldn't tolerate shoes. And then it was like, right. And at that point in time, we were like, how are we going to like continue and just live? And it was over it was springtime. It was probably last year, actually.
And he doesn't like wearing jumpers, so all through the winter we kind of have long sleeve.
Yeah, he'll wear one type of top, one type of trousers, and it's long sleeve top and like baggy fit leggings
and Crocs.
He'll now wear, but and actually he wouldn't wear a coat. We managed to get a gilet on him, didn't we, when it was really cold? But that took a lot of kind of
milk
and like sensory input before, and it wasn't easy to get him to wear that. But I think it's just about accepting that that's what he needs, and he isn't doing it to be difficult. He's doing it because he's not regulated.
And I find that tough.
Yeah.
As a parent, you're kind of
like, you need to give yourself some credit, because actually you say you find it tough, which you do find it tough, but you do everything he needs.
And it's like you have kind of expected like rules and boundaries and everything, and they're just completely broken.
And they are. And he has limited, I'd say, understanding of words as well. So it's not like you can, I mean, you can't reason with any.
You can't negotiate with him. Yeah.
With Noah.
No.
And it's not like you can, and you can't bribe him with like, oh, a chocolate. Or,
or even explain why it's important to wear a coat. Yeah.
There's not that understanding there. And actually, potentially, he doesn't feel, I don't think he really feels the cold either. So it's not like he's getting those body messages either that, oh, I actually am cold, I need a coat. So it's just, I think, and patience, like that's been the biggest thing, that actually remembering that phrase that everything passes.
Which is easier said than done when you haven't slept for 5 years.
And I think that is actually like probably one of the hardest things is the lack of sleep.
Yeah.
Because everything feels worse, doesn't it, when you're tired? And but touch wood, I shouldn't say it, but he is slightly better at sleeping in the last 2 weeks.
Don't say it.
I mean, it's still not great, but I'm not being woken every hour, so I'll take that as a win. But yeah, I think, like you say, kind of every like parenting norm, if you like, or social norm. No, we couldn't care less about social norms and what we thought we were going to be like as parents.
And you don't want to sort of come across as moaning, because if you ask us, we will probably go, yeah, we're all right.
Fine, yeah.
But actually, we could spend hours about how we haven't slept, how we wouldn't get dressed.
I think that's really important to talk about, because there are so many parents in your shoes. From National Autistic Society, they say 1 in 100 is autistic. It is far more like, 1 in 10, isn't it? To be neurodivergent or certainly have sensory regulation needs. There are so many parents out there that are managing this alone together. And social media is a great connector, as you said before, that's a great idea, or or just start finding it difficult together. Just just finding it difficult.
100%. Like, just someone else to message at 4 a.m. when you're the only person awake in the world, and it's really lonely and you're really tired. And actually, when you then sort of on there are chatting to someone who is in exactly the same situation, like for example, so Noah has melatonin. And I mean, to be fair, whether it helps or not, he really knows. I think it does help a little bit.
It helps you get to sleep. It doesn't keep you asleep. I think.
No, exactly, and that's the biggest thing. But then we got the slow release tablets, and I was like, no, I'll be having ARFID and only eating 2 foods. I was like, how am I going to get a tablet into him? But again, power of social media. Someone showed about like using a syringe with water. I was like, well, a syringe isn't going to work with Noah because again, that's too much demand. In the end, I was like, right, I'm gonna put the little, because they're like micro tablets, into his straw in his drink, and now he drinks it, no problem at all. Doesn't even know it's there, just sucks it up.
More often than not.
But I wouldn't have even thought about that had I not seen that post on social media. And actually, that's been life changing, because I would not have been able to get that tablet into him had I not kind of thought of a way in his drink. So I think, and it's just like those kind of everyday little tips that actually have such a big difference, because we definitely now know about the different areas of autism and like kind of the stereotypical what to do and how to help, but you quite often find that actually in the real life, where every child is different, neurodiverse or not, that actually they don't necessarily work for your child. So it's just about kind of getting as many tips as you can. And sharing. And like, so at the end of the month, actually, I'm starting this kind of parent support group for parents of neurodivergent children, and that is literally all about just getting together, like crying together, whether that's through laughter or kind of tough times, sharing tips. Like everyone will be at different kind of stages of their journey. I've kind of had like invaluable support from they're actually parents at the school I work at who have really helped when I've been through the HCP process with Noah. And like, until you've done it, you don't know these things. So then actually, and then it's too late because you probably aren't going to do it again.
I hadn't even heard of what an EHCP was.
This is it.
I still don't really understand what it all is.
Luckily, I've done it.
Yeah. But that's true. The support network can be fantastic. Is it in person or virtual?
Yeah, so this will be the first meetup, and we are going to do this in person, which will be kind of Colchester-based families in Essex. But then I don't know where it will go really, whether it will go into kind of doing virtual events. I'll probably do some like locally and then some virtually, and whether it will be just socialising or whether potentially I'll do some kind of sharing of information as well in the long term. But
or
I
like
just think,
a chat group or something
yeah,
that you can just informally message.
exactly. I just think like the power of kind of community and finding people in a similar situation to yourselves, that's definitely helped me more than anything. And I think like as a dad, like that isn't something you've
But I was going to say, females are so good at that. It's social media and building connections. How do you feel, Stuart? Do you feel like that would be helpful to you, or that kind of social media stuff? Or,
to be perfectly honest, I'm still a bit like, whoa, I don't know whether I will fully commit to. I don't know. I guess if I'm being completely honest, it comes down to kind of an acceptance that my child is not kind of neurotypical. There's still that. If I give in, if you like, then that's all over, and I'm sort of losing sight. But that being said, I 100%, I kind of second feed everything that this one gets.
Yeah.
But it's tough. I can't quite explain it, but as a dad, like, you're kind of macho and you want the best and you want this and that and you want your son or daughter to be the best. And then you get hit with this wave of autism and neurotypical and
global delay.
And it's like, oh my God, what is my child gonna turn up?
Yeah,
are they are they gonna have a normal life? And it's kind of, I don't.
And no one can answer that. So I've worked with 400 plus children, lots and lots, that everything you're describing, Noah, I can kind of imagine it.
Yeah.
And I still can't tell you what could or couldn't be, because their journeys are so different. They say, don't they, you meet one autistic person, you've known one autistic person. Every single child I have is not similar to each other in any, or in some ways, but they really are unique. I'm not just saying that. And some have gone on to go to college and have jobs and live semi-independently or independently and have relationships. And others haven't. Others live in assisted living or live at home or live with siblings. Some of them volunteer. Some of them don't. They have a PA and they go out for the day. There are so, and they all look like Noah at 5.
Yeah.
So I can't answer the future just as much as any other person can. And I don't know if that gives you comfort or not. It's just, it just is.
Hardest thing,
that's the hardest thing. Like, it's a journey for Noah and it's a journey for us. And it's just accepting it, and whether you embrace it full on straight away or you gradually kind of come into it and learn and take little bits. I think for a guy, going to a group is really quite like frightening.
Yeah. Whether it's a divergent parenting
or
group,
whatever,
like you just wouldn't, like, normally stereotypical, isn't it? Like the dad is normally full-time work, and then the mum is the one who's part-time. I know that's not always.
And you've got your friends, and
you're always a bit like that, aren't you? It's always like, I've got loads of friends, they're great, I don't need any more friends.
But it is true, like they don't get it.
No, they don't.
And they tried, but they can't.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's for me why I'm like, I don't think, and it's no reflection on them as friends, but like parenting a neurotypical child, you just can't get it, because actually is unbelievable some of the things that happen, and we're like, oh my God, what is happening? Like,
Stuart, do you follow stories about autism? He's an Essex-based dad.
Yeah.
From Burnham on Crouch. And I think following him would be really helpful, because you don't have to chat to him in the DMs. You don't have to set up a group with him or meet up with him in person. But just following his journey. He's got teenagers now, and his boys were probably very much like Noah at 4.
Yeah.
It's just maybe a little bit of an insight and a little bit of like, I am not alone in this. Like this.
That's it, at your own pace, and knowing that there's things there and people suggest things, but it's in your own time.
Yeah, I think that's probably been the thing we've found most throughout the like journey of Noah's life so far, is that people can kind of suggest things, or like you can go to different things, but until you are ready as a person and until you've almost got to that, I think you like do accept that Noah's autistic, but equally probably would like to change that. Like, if we're being honest.
And I think acceptance is constant. I don't think acceptance is ever finished.
No, for sure.
I think with every day and moment, acceptance has to grow. And because so much is unknown, how could you ever now accept who he's going to become when you don't know what that is? So I think it happens daily, yearly, moment by moment.
Yeah.
Situation by situation is that acceptance is, first of all, not accepting and then growing and then accepting, and then there's a new situation, not accepting. I think it's consistent acceptance. I think that's another thing that people don't realize. It's just constant.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it is, like, you hit the nail on the head. It's just so hard because you just don't know. You don't know what's coming. And like I always say, we spoke about this before.
Yeah.
I was like, I would love a crystal ball,
like a timeline,
to like see, right, this is where we're going to get to. And
but I don't know whether I would.
You don't think you would like that, but I would love that, because I would then know. I think anyway, I'd like it, but I'd then know. I would know what we were working towards. Like, I would know the end goal. And then I feel like I would then be easier able to accept that. Whereas Stuart's like, oh God, no, I'd hate that. I wouldn't want to like see into the future. But yeah, it is tricky. But I think also when you are so exhausted, and I have definitely been through this stage, I didn't want to connect with people because I was just so tired.
Yeah, you had nothing left.
And I didn't have anything left. And I still definitely go through times of that where I'm like, oh, I'm so mentally drained.
It's a huge effort. Go and put on your kind of happy face.
Yeah, and also they're putting on their stuff onto you, and you're only just managing your own stuff. That's that kind of weird social thing, isn't it? Of like, oh God, yeah, but they might want me to help them.
Yeah,
and I can't do that.
Like through my job, like I'm not Senko, but I've done the qualification and I've done kind of the acting role for a bit as well. So a lot of families at work, if they do have a child who it has additional needs, they will come and talk to me. So I do that through my job, which then probably means that I find it easier like in my personal life too. Whereas I guess like in your role, it's nothing at all to do with kind of neurodiversity or like parenting. So actually that's so different that is kind of far removed from like your norm maybe. And that's why it isn't necessarily something that you find. But then equally, we have had conversations where Stuart's like, oh, like they just totally don't get it, or it's really sad because like the guys are talking about their children doing this, like, and that's so different to Noah, like with fights, wasn't it?
Yeah, like both of my good friends have got similar age kids to Noah, and they were talking about riding a bike and it was like, I was just like, I'm just so far removed from this conversation because
and those conversations are gonna sting, no matter how much you love and accept your child.
It wasn't anything, nothing on them or nothing.
It's just that reminder, isn't it, of what milestones he may or may not reach, and he certainly isn't reaching now.
And it is. I think I almost, although I say I'm really accepting, sometimes I just don't think about it. Like that's probably my coping as well. Like can't think about it too much. On a like personal mummy level because that's too emotional and too tricky. But actually I can think about it on like a, not on a professional level, but almost on a like.
So you go into your like, this is how we're going to do, this is what we're going to do, these is what our strategies we're going to use.
I think I do that, don't I?
Otherwise you just break down.
I think so too. And sometimes Stuart's like, oh, that's like a really like
matter of fact
way of thinking and talking about it. But I'm not trying to do that. I think it's just my coping mechanism, not even knowing.
It's your safety zone, isn't it? Because that's what you know, that's what you're comfortable with, that's what you're confident in, that's what you're trained in. It makes sense, so much sense, that you would go to that place because it's where you're comfortable, it's where you're used to, it's where you feel
all over the place and doing all sorts and crying and shouting and running away and
it's all of it, but it just is, isn't it?
No, it is. It's the accepting and the accepting of the moment, accepting of the second, and knowing,
accepting the parent that you are as well. Acceptance not just of them but of yourself. Like, this is the dad I am.
Yeah.
And you can't get hung up on, I'm a bad parent, I'm not a...
No. And I think like probably one thing that we've really learned, but it's still so hard, is like not to care too much about what other people think. Like, when Noah's literally like throwing himself to the floor or like
throwing a chair over,
and he looks normal. He looks like a neurotypical child, and he looks like he's just being a like having a tantrum basically, but actually they don't know that he's got all of these things going on, that he's obsessed with something and fixated on it, and he can't communicate what it is that he wants. And actually what we've learned definitely through basically doing everything is that trying to stay calm and regulate with him is so much more successful and helps him. But equally we know that, and I would share that with families at work, and that's really important, and tell Stuart, like, we need to do this. But actually, when you're in the minute and you've had no sleep and it's like the 5th meltdown of the day, and you know that actually the problem is that he hasn't eaten for hours because he's scared of food, and then
he's holding a biscuit for 4 hours in his hand.
It's not always easy to stay calm.
No.
Equally, that's just parenting, isn't it?
Because we're human and we're not robots, and you can know all the things, you can read all the books, you can follow all the social media accounts, and ultimately we are just human and they are just our children. And ultimately that comes down to the like nature side of things, doesn't it? And to accept in that moment as well that I accept that I'm tired, I accept that I reacted how I didn't want to, I accept that, you know, it's all of that, isn't it?
And also just like that we don't always know what's best. Like that's definitely been something that, like, going back to kind of him starting school, I was so conflicted about what I thought, and like realistically you were like, whatever you think, Em, because I'm in education. So I was like, I don't know whether I think he needs a specialist setting, whether I think he needs a kind of unit, or whether I think he's better in mainstream initially.
And I didn't even really know what all of these different options were until
or what it even looked like.
And I found that so difficult, like to
challenging
again. And that partly was difficult because I was in education, so I feel like I should know. But then equally partly difficult because you're just thrown into this, like all of a sudden your child's this age, and it's like, this is a really, really big decision.
And he's also changing.
And he's changing
daily. Could be different.
We're like, he's only 3 at this point.
Yeah, and at that point also you don't want to say if he can or can't ever achieve anything, and are we going to hold him back? Are we going to put him in a situation where he can't, or he's left out? Yeah.
Or our parents have like their opinion on what they thought was best. You were kind of like, basically, you didn't know, did you? You were like, whatever you think.
We went to see both.
Sometimes it depends what the local offer is as well. Like, you could have a special needs school right next to you that really isn't appropriate. Just so happens the cohort that year are really different from your child. I don't know, maybe your child is sound sensitive and they're just a really busy, loud group. It could be the perfect school, the perfect class, the perfect teacher, but just that cohort just doesn't work for your child. So it really, really is so individualized.
So difficult. That was so difficult.
And I'm still worried about how
100%.
is he?
Yeah, can we talk about that? Because obviously with ARFID as well, like there must be a lot of anxiety about starting school.
How is he going to wear a school? He's not.
So, and in his EHCP, it's written in that actually, like, reasonable adjustments, basically doesn't have to wear a school uniform.
But then I'm worried about what other children, and I like perceive him, and is he going to be kind of, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All that sort of aspect.
Yeah, there's a lot of fear. Yeah.
And I think like and sometimes again this goes back to like being tired all the time. Like I actually have the answers to those questions, but because we're so tired, like we just haven't actually spoken about it. And it's like, because I guess, and that was kind of why I felt so much, what's the word, like pressure almost about getting the HCP right, was because I knew that actually this document is so important to make sure that we can give him as much chance as possible to thrive. But then equally it's like, oh gosh, like that's so much pressure to make sure that you're getting everything into it that needs to be in there.
And you're wonderful for that, because like I literally wouldn't have
a
clue.
And I just feel so like that's so difficult, isn't it, for families who don't have someone.
But it does get reviewed every year, and that's why I think, isn't it, so that you can have it all initially, or you can build it up as things happen. So it's okay either way.
And the children change, don't they? So 100% be reviewed. But equally, as a parent, you want to do everything you can, don't you, to make your child's life as easy as possible.
Yeah. And so he goes to nursery 2 days a week. He still doesn't, when there's lunch times, he still doesn't really, sometimes he sits, but not very often.
Normally he's like,
and he kind of goes in another room. So that's another kind of point of, how's he gonna be? Also the speaking, like it's coming on, but it's very slow. So how's his how's he going to get his point across other than kicking and screaming and
yeah. These are all such useful questions to be asking, and
other teachers going to care, but I know that they will because Emily's there. But if he was just being shipped off to another, like, you're giving your kind of like little precious to,
and you are experts in him. You know what these little eye movements mean, what his little hand movements mean. You know him inside and out. So to be able to trust your precious, like you said, your precious child with strangers that don't know him, don't know his triggers, don't know how to calm him, or this means this means this, you know. I mean, what my advice is as a teacher is don't worry about being that parent. Write everything down, fill in the homeschool book. If you want to send him in the first day or in the transition day with A4 pieces of paper with everything that he does and why, if that's you, do it. Don't worry about being that parent. Don't worry about calling up. Don't worry about staying at the gate. Don't worry about being that parent.
So going from 2 days to 5 days.
Right.
How's he going to cope? And then we also know sometimes when he's come back from nursery, he's pretty dysregulated, like he kind of shows his emotion. And so how's that gonna cope? And also he does a longer day in terms of at nursery, and then he's now finishing at 3:30.
So we're like, how are we going to deal with childcare?
How are we going to deal with childcare? Like, wonderful.
Just step by step.
Yeah.
Step by step. I'd say over the holidays, he doesn't need to wear uniform, but start getting used to whatever clothes he's going to be wearing at school. Start getting used to shoes. I mean, that is maybe the most important thing. Start getting used to transitioning at a certain time in the day, maybe. I mean, there's probably flexibility around that as well. I mean, the thing is, the school sounds incredible, and it sounds like they're incredibly reasonable and flexible.
Yeah,
so maybe pick, like you said, pick your battles at the beginning. Maybe pick like a list of, right, what is the absolute most important thing? Maybe it's food in other places, you know, maybe that's the most important thing. Pick your most important fundamental thing and just start there and almost forget the rest. Like, forget the uniform, forget the transition time and him being late, you know, forget 4 days a week, forget full time, you know, all of those kind of things. Just focus on, we need him to be able to eat in a different chair, maybe, is the first thing. And until that's done, well, there's no point worrying about the rest of it, because that he can't do it all, and you certainly can't either.
Even handover, like,
that's
just
tricky,
getting him to stay and be happy and not kick the house down.
But I think, I guess, again, because it is the school I work at, I know we are really inclusive. I know that, and I think just education has come on so much, hasn't it? Like, reasonable adjustments and doing, like, genuinely doing what children need and meeting them where they are. Like, I know that happens. Whereas I guess, like, you're kind of, and parents kind of think about schools, don't they? How maybe they had the school experience.
And that's all.
And I can totally see why that's scary.
Because we didn't have Noahs in our reception classes, did we, at school?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I think I would feel more, I mean, definitely I'm anxious about it, but I would feel more anxious if I didn't have a really good kind of knowledge of what primary school is like now, or at least where Noah will be going. And like you say, just trying to take like one thing at a time, and actually
give yourself grace.
And going back to what you said right at the start, there are so many children with differences now, and actually kind of neurodiversity is everywhere, isn't it? And actually that can be celebrated.
Yeah, I feel like primary schools are better for having Noahs in there. So I'm part of specialist provision, but I'm attached to a mainstream school, and there's just as much need in the mainstream school as in my specialist provision, weirdly, just because there's a need, isn't there, and we're full. So they're in the mainstream, and we are such a better school, a more loving school, a more accepting school, because they are there, and the children are just wonderful, and the adults are wonderful, really celebrate everything. And it means that the children that are neurodivergent but can cope in mainstream academically and socially and all of those things are also accepted and celebrated and have reasonable adjustments and their needs met. But it's just all better because of the Noahs in the world that are seen.
100%.
And I think the children are more accepting as well nowadays. Like, my 8, 9, and they just
don't
get it. They don't even they just don't even think about it. Whereas I went to school and it was like, if you didn't have your tie on right, or you had like something,
anything different,
anything different. Whereas nowadays, like, the difference is celebrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, or even, sometimes not even questioned. Like,
Yeah.
it's really interesting. Children are incredible, and I do think we should be led by them. Yeah, in reception class, they're just like, oh, that's just what he does. I'm like, yeah, you're so right. Like, I wish other adults would have that.
100%. And even at nursery, like, they're great, and like they kind of have always worked with us to like talk about like what we're comfortable with and what we're not, and like they will explain to the other children, like when because Noah's always kind of eating on the go, he won't sit down, so like they explain to Noah and the other children that Noah's brain works a bit differently to yours, and that's what Noah needs to feel happy, and that's what Noah needs to do, so actually just having those conversations at like an age level, I do think happens all the time, doesn't
and
it?
And they're also children that will grow up into being the adults that are in his community when he's an adult.
Yeah, and that is
so what kind of world do we want and community do we want around Noah when he's an adult? Well, we want a really loving, accepting, supportive, understanding community. And that starts now, doesn't it? Those children in his class will be in your local community.
See when you drop off and there's some of the other children and they kind of like run up to him and he hugs them, which is not normal.
It's amazing.
But it is, and it's just
like even the other parents, like they pick up the other kids and Noah runs up and hugs them, doesn't he? And
no, but I more meant the children are so accepting.
Yeah.
You can see that generally means a lot to Noah as well and to them.
Yeah.
And then the teachers say that they've been playing together all afternoon and whatever else, so which is not normal. As in,
no, and that's lovely. That's already starting. That's really encouraging, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Like when like he kind of likes interacting with adults, but we didn't ever see before like the interacting with children, did we? And then like just to see him like running around with the other children at nursery, like Stuart said, like a drop off, like some of the other children, there's two like who love him loads, and like they come up to him and give him a hug, and you just think, oh, my heart. And it's just those little things, I think, that mean the world, that you might normally kind of take for granted, but actually like that is massive.
Yeah.
And I think that will kind of stand him in good stead for primary as well. And I think, although, like, don't get me wrong, I'm so kind of worried about so many aspects of that transition and that change, I also am excited for it, because I think it could really support him to kind of flourish. So yeah, I think it will. And also, like, it will, in some ways, although it will be hard for us on childcare, it also is a nice routine of kind of what happens Monday to Friday. And actually, if Monday to Friday doesn't work, we'll look at a part-time timetable.
I think he'll get used to it, because he does eventually get used to kind of
it's just
routine
that
and
stage.
That transition.
Yeah, I mean, and transitions will always be challenging, won't they? And as long as you've got the support of the school, which sounds like you have, and support of each other, anything you face, you'll work together to come up with solutions. You could have the best plan in the world, and there'll always be something.
Yeah, I think sort of giving yourself, not praise, because you don't want to be self-praising, high-fiving and all that, but just going, it is all right, and you are doing an all right job is quite important.
I think you're always, like, we're always questioning, like, you always could do more, couldn't you?
Yeah.
And like we say, because like he's got the kind of communication needs, he's got the ARFID, he's got the sensory differences, there's so much going on, and it's like, okay, right, we're like, right, we need to really model his AAC device, and like we're really like trying to put time into that, and then it's like, oh god, like he hasn't eaten anything in however many hours, he's getting dysregulated, or like, and then it's trying to kind of spin all the plates. Really,
I can relate to that as a teacher, actually, that we're like, oh, we haven't done any learning today, and they're like, they're fed, they're safe, they're regulated, we've done enough. And it is accepting that, isn't it, of like, actually today we met their basic needs, you know, and they went home clean, clean enough, content enough, regulated. You know what, actually we did a good job today. And it is just like sitting with that, isn't it? And
it's
trying to just be having a positive outlook rather than getting wrapped up in the negatives. Which
that's a wonderful place to finish our conversation. I'm so pleased that you guys are here. I think this is a really important conversation for lots of parents, actually, but especially parents that have children and they're still coming to terms with everything, and being, I think it's really important to have the conversation of it's okay to still be coming to terms with everything. Which is really wonderful. Where can people find you guys?
So our Instagram is Journey2Autism with the number 2. And yeah, there's loads of stuff on there. Always feel free to message us. I love connecting with kind of other families and kind of sharing what we've learned throughout the process, but also giving me some top tips of what to do for transition in school, for example, or for ARFID. But yeah, Journey2Autism.
Amazing. And you guys and anyone listening as well, if you need any support about transitions, I've got so many tools and stuff on my drive and available that I use all the time, visuals, everything. So if you have a question or you need a resource, I've probably got it. So please just reach out.
Definitely. You're amazing.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks ever so much. Bye.